I'm Marcus, 34, and for the last few years, I've been what you'd call the family ATM, except I didn't come with an off switch. It started small. A little help with my cousin's tuition, gas money for my aunt when her hours got cut, bailing out my younger brother when he bought a used car that broke down a week later. One after another, they needed help, and I gave it, telling myself it was temporary, that I was lucky to be in a position where I could help. And I guess some part of me hoped they'd remember that they'd see me as the dependable one, the good son, the generous nephew, the brother who always picked up the check. I never expected gratitude, not really. But I also didn't expect what happened on that random Tuesday evening. It was about 9:40 p.m. I'd just gotten back from work, my second meeting-heavy day in a row. Exhausted, I tossed my keys into the bowl by the door, set down my takeout, and collapsed onto the couch. That's when my phone buzzed. A message in the family group chat. Normally, it was full of memes, prayers, birthday wishes, and my mom's weekly "don't forget family dinner" reminders. I opened it absent-mindedly, expecting the usual nonsense. Instead, I saw a video clip. It was from my Uncle Gary, the one who always wore gold chains and called himself a businessman, even though nobody could ever quite figure out what business he was in. The video looked like it was taken at my cousin Lily's birthday cookout last weekend, the one I had to miss because of a work trip. They'd said they understood. I tapped the video. The audio was a little fuzzy at first, but it didn't take long to make out the voices. My brother Kyle's voice cut through clearly. "Freeloader? Please, Marcus is just our wallet." That was followed by laughter, actual laughter, from around the table. My aunt chortled, "If he ever stops paying for stuff, we'll have to start working overtime." Imagine that. Someone else, maybe my cousin James, said something like, "Hey, toast to Marcus, may his direct deposits never fail." And they clinked glasses. They clinked to me like I was some joke. My Uncle Gary, who recorded it, chuckled and added, "Man doesn't even come around, but he's always good for a payment." That's real dedication. Freeloading in reverse. The video ended with everyone laughing again. I stared at my phone for a long time, rewound it, watched it again. Not because I couldn't believe it. Part of me always knew they talked like that when I wasn't around, but because of what I saw on the screen. My mom, smiling, not saying a word in my defense, just sipping her wine and letting them joke. They didn't realize I was in the chat. The video hadn't been sent to me directly, it was just posted there, for everyone. Maybe Gary thought he'd trimmed it to only go to certain people. Maybe he assumed I wouldn't check it. But it was there. No mistaking it. And I said, nothing. Not that night. Not the next day. Not when Kyle texted me asking if I could cover his car note again. Just for this month. Promise I'll get back on my feet next check. Not when Aunt Teresa messaged saying she was short on rent and hoped I'd come through like always. Not even when Mom called just to catch up and casually asked if I'd mind putting Lily's summer camp deposit on my card like last year. I was polite, cordial, distant, and then I started quietly making changes. The rent payments I'd been sending to my aunt's landlord every month stopped. The auto pay for Kyle's car loan canceled. The joint credit card that James used for emergencies and which somehow always ended up maxed froze it. Called the bank. Told them I'd lost the card and didn't want a replacement. No announcements. No warnings. No arguments. Just silence. Within the week, the call started. Aunt Teresa was first. "Hey, baby, rent's due today, and the payment didn't go through. Did you maybe forget? Can you check it?" I told her I'd look into it. Never did. Then Kyle. "Dude, my car payment bounced, and now I'm late. They're gonna charge me fees." "What's going on?" "Oh," I said. "That's weird. Maybe you should call them and figure it out." By Friday, I was getting texts from James that started with "bro" and quickly escalated to "what is wrong with you?" I didn't respond. Saturday morning, my mom called. "Marcus," she said, a little too sweetly, "I'm hearing you're not helping out this week. Are you okay? Is everything all right?" I said I was fine, just reevaluating some things. There was a pause. Then she said, "Well, you know the family counts on you. We don't all have your privileges." Ah, there it was. Privileges, she said. As if I hadn't busted my back working my way up through a tech startup that nearly went under twice before I landed my current role. As if I hadn't eaten ramen while sleeping on a busted couch for 2 years, so I could squirrel away enough to pay off student loans and keep a credit score high enough to help them. But I didn't argue. Just said, "Yeah, I know." Later that day, I got another video in the group chat. This one wasn't mocking. It was a shaky clip of Aunt Teresa standing in front of her apartment complex's leasing office, arms flailing, clearly yelling at the staff. Kyle had added a comment. Guess this is what happens when Marcus flakes. Still didn't reply. Then came the real panic. 3 days later, Mom sent a long message directly to me. Marcus, we need to talk. I know some things were said that were inappropriate, and your uncle is sorry. Everyone misses you. You can't just cut everyone off because of one bad joke. I read it 3 times before setting the phone down. The truth was, they hadn't just made a joke. They'd revealed something. That all this time, the way they saw me wasn't as a person. I wasn't family. I was a service. A walking, breathing, quiet line of credit. And I'd enabled it. Year after year. I don't think they realized how much I kept track of. I'd been managing and paying so many of their bills for so long that I had the login info for 3 different accounts. I knew which utilities were still in my name because their credit isn't good enough. I knew which subscriptions they'd signed up for under my info. They thought they were entitled to it, that it was normal, that I'd always be there. But they were wrong. And as the days passed and more bills went unpaid, more services cut off, and more consequences began to land, suddenly, the jokes weren't so funny anymore. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I didn't respond to my mom's message. Not because I didn't have a lot to say. Trust me, I had paragraphs written in my head, everything from the time she said, "You're lucky to be useful," when I got my first bonus, to how she called my raises family blessings. But I wasn't going to waste my breath. They didn't deserve my explanation. They deserved the consequences. That Friday, Kyle lost his car. I know this because he posted a pathetic rant on Instagram about how unfair it is that they can just take your car over one missed payment. His story was a mess of blurry screenshots, complaint tweets, and sad Drake music. I watched it all while drinking coffee on my balcony, quietly amused. I knew the bank had already been lenient because I'd been the one sweet-talking the rep for 2 years. Aunt Teresa texted me later that night. You let Kyle's car get towed? He's humiliated. What are you doing to this family? I replied, didn't realize I was still doing anything to the family. Read receipt. No reply. 3 days later, my cousin Lily messaged me from her mom's phone, probably because hers had been shut off. Lily, hey, Uncle Marcus, did I do something wrong? Why can't I go to camp this year? That one stung. I actually liked Lily. She always hugged me first at family dinners, always drew me goofy birthday cards. But her mom, the same one who called me reverse freeloader #1, in that video had signed her up for a $2,100 summer camp without asking. Just assumed I'd cover it. Like usual. I sat with that message for a long time. Then I replied, me, no, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong. Your mom just made some choices. I'm sure she'll explain. And still, I didn't respond to the group chat. Let them stew. Let them spiral. That weekend, my mom came knocking. I mean literally. She drove to my apartment, uninvited, and stood outside my door like some kind of sitcom interventionist. I didn't let her in. Just spoke through the intercom. Marcus, she started, her voice all breathy and pained. What you're doing is cruel. We're family. You don't just abandon your family like this. I took a moment before I replied. Interesting choice of words, Mom. Because you didn't think it was cruel when they toasted to me being your collective wallet. She stammered. They were joking. You know how Gary gets. Yeah, I said. I do. And you laughed. That doesn't mean. I cut her off. Mom, you said nothing. Not even a hey, that's enough. You just smiled. That told me everything I needed to know. She was quiet. Then, in the softest, most rehearsed voice she could muster, she said, so what? You're just going to punish everyone? I almost laughed. Punish? No, I wasn't punishing. I was rebalancing. I'm just letting everyone carry their own weight for once, I said. Call it a social experiment. She left without saying goodbye. I watched her car pull away from my ring cam later, and something in my chest finally unclenched. For the first time in a while, I felt peaceful. But that peace didn't last long, because the cracks in the family were beginning to widen and fast. On Wednesday, I got a call from Aunt Teresa's landlord. Apparently, the rent hadn't been paid for 2 months. She'd told him I was handling it, and even showed him old Zelle receipts to prove I'd done it before. The landlord, a man named Victor, sounded sympathetic but firm. I don't want to evict her, man, he said. But she's dragging your name into this. I had to call. Thanks for the heads up, I told him. But I'm not responsible for Teresa's rent. Not anymore. Thursday morning, I opened my email to find a notification from the electric company. It was a warning. The bill on a house I didn't live in, my mom's house, was 47 days overdue. The account was still in my name, because she once told me it was just easier that way. 2 clicks later, it was transferred out of my name and shut down pending confirmation of a new account holder. That same night, Cal posted on Facebook, of all places, a long, angry post that started with "family isn't supposed to stab you in the back" and ended with "money changes people." My name wasn't mentioned, but the comments section made it obvious who he was talking about. And Teresa chimed in with a passive-aggressive, "Sometimes people forget who helped raise them," and my mom added 3 sad face emojis. I scrolled past it all. And that's when I got the call from Grandma. She's the only one I hadn't cut off. She's always been kind, even if she rarely stepped in during the messes. She doesn't have much, and she never asked me for anything. So when I saw her name on the caller ID, I picked up immediately. Her voice was shaky. "Baby, I don't know what's going on, but everyone's fighting. Your mama's saying you abandoned her. Kyle's saying he might lose his job without a car. Teresa's crying to everyone who'll listen. What happened?" I sighed. "Grandma, they made fun of me. Called me their wallet. On video. Sent it to the whole group like it was funny." She didn't speak right away. Just let out a soft, "Oh, no. I never asked for praise," I said. "But they showed who they really are. And now they're mad because the gravy train stopped." She took a breath. "You've always been good to this family, Marcus. Too good. But don't let this harden your heart. Just protect your peace." I promised her I would. But peace wasn't what came next. Because 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail. Not a text. Not an email. An actual certified letter. It was from Uncle Gary. And it wasn't an apology. It was a notice. He was threatening legal action, claiming I'd knowingly disrupted essential payments on behalf of family members, resulting in emotional and financial distress, and that he would be consulting an attorney regarding possible restitution or civil claims. That's when I realized this wasn't over. Not even close. I stared at the letter in my hand for a long time, not sure whether to laugh or be offended. Uncle Gary, of all people, threatening me with legal action? The same man who once tried to claim a tax write-off for a consulting business that was really just him buying and reselling fake watches out of his garage. The man who didn't even have a working printer and once used his neighbor's Wi-Fi for 3 straight months until they changed the password. I read every word of his letter. It was printed on cheap, unlined paper, like the kind kids use for arts and crafts, and riddled with bolded phrases like legal consequences and breach of familial obligations. No signature from a real lawyer. No firm name. Just his own signature at the bottom in unnecessarily large cursive, like he thought that alone would make it legally binding. Still, I scanned the letter, took a photo of it, and called my own lawyer, an actual one I've used for years, mostly for contracts and finance-related stuff. His name's Ben. We met back when I did some tech consulting work for a startup he represented, and since then, he's handled everything from apartment lease reviews to trademark filings for a side business I've been quietly working on. I emailed him the photo of the letter with the subject line, "Uncle Gary thinks he's Saul Goodman." Ben called me 5 minutes later, laughing so hard he was wheezing. Sorry, he said restitution. He managed to choke out. "Marcus, this isn't a legal letter. This is an angry Facebook post in Times New Roman." "Yeah, that was my read too," I said, sipping coffee while watching the family group chat blow up in silence. "But if he's dumb enough to try something for real, I want to be ready." Ben reassured me. "Let him try. If he files anything, I'll have it laughed out of court before the ink dries. Just document everything." Which I'm guessing, knowing you already have. I smiled. I've got bank statements, Zelle receipts, email threads, call logs. I even have a spreadsheet tracking every payment I made for them since 2019, color-coded, with footnotes. Ben let out a low whistle. "Remind me never to cross you." After I hung up, I did exactly what he said. I backed up every document. I exported PDFs of every payment I'd made on behalf of family members, rent, cars, utilities, groceries, even a few Amazon Prime memberships that I was apparently still paying for. I took screenshots of texts and messages where they asked me for help, especially the ones where they flat out admitted they couldn't manage without me. All of it, stored in a neatly labeled folder on both a local hard drive and a cloud server, just in case. Meanwhile, the family drama was escalating, publicly. Kyle's girlfriend, Amanda, who had been quiet through most of this, suddenly posted a TikTok titled, POV, your BF's family cuts him off and now you can't even DoorDash Chick-fil-A. It was meant to be funny, I guess. But then came a second video where she tearfully talked about how Kyle was abandoned by the brother who promised to always be there. She claimed I was acting like a corporate overlord and accused me of weaponizing money to manipulate people. The comments weren't kind to her. One person wrote, "Wait, your man can't afford chicken nuggets without his brother? Sounds like a you problem." Another said, "Girl, this ain't oppression. It's adulthood." But that didn't stop the wave. More TikToks followed. A Twitter thread. Even a Reddit post under r/family drama that was very clearly Aunt Teresa ranting under a throwaway account. The tone was unmistakable. My nephew cut off his struggling family after we made one innocent joke. Now we're facing eviction. Is there any legal recourse? And beneath it, hundreds of comments dragging her to filth. You made fun of the guy supporting you financially and are surprised he stopped. Actions have consequences. Maybe don't bite the hand that pays your rent. It was almost entertaining. Almost. But part of me felt numb. Because deep down, I knew something they still didn't. This wasn't just about money. This was about respect. About dignity. And they had none left. Not for me. And apparently not even for themselves. The kicker came the following week. A letter arrived. Not from Gary this time, but from his so-called lawyer. It was printed on letterhead that looked suspiciously homemade. The email address listed was a generic Gmail account, and the return address was Gary's own street. The letter was a masterclass in legal nonsense, emotional damages, familial betrayal, implied fiduciary obligation. I sent it to Ben. His reply? This is either AI-generated or written by a squirrel on Adderall. Either way, it's hilarious. But while Gary was busy playing fake lawyer, real consequences were piling up around the rest of the family. Aunt Teresa was served an eviction notice. Kyle's insurance lapsed. James's credit card was closed for non-payment. And then my mom's power went out during a heat wave. I got a voicemail from her that night. "Marcus, it's your mother. I know things have gotten out of hand, but you're really going to let us sit here in this heat? You know I have high blood pressure. Can't you just please call me? We need to talk." It was the first time I'd heard her say please in months. I sat on my balcony that night, watching the city lights blink and shimmer below, her message still playing in my head. Was it cruel? Maybe. But was it deserved? Absolutely. And then, just when I thought they couldn't get any more desperate, they showed up. At my office. Not just one or two of them. All of them. Uncle Gary in his wrinkled blazer, Kyle looking like he hadn't slept, Aunt Teresa with her sunglasses on indoors, and my mother, holding a Tupperware container, like she thought bringing my favorite childhood cookies would somehow fix this. They didn't make it past reception. My assistant buzzed me with a tone I'd never heard from her before. "Marcus, I think you should see this. Your family's here. They're saying it's urgent." I stood, slowly, heart thumping, and walked to the glass wall of my office. I looked down into the lobby and saw them all staring up at me, waiting. I stood there behind the tinted glass of my office window, staring down at them. They looked like a sitcom gone wrong, equal parts frantic, entitled, and pitiful. Uncle Gary was pacing in front of the reception desk like he was preparing to make some grand speech. Kyle kept checking his phone, probably hoping one of his side hustles had miraculously deposited money. Aunt Teresa stood like a statue, her oversized sunglasses doing a terrible job of hiding her red-rimmed eyes. My mother just clutched that stupid Tupperware container like it was a peace offering wrapped in sugar and nostalgia. I felt nothing. No anger. No bitterness. Just finality. I tapped the intercom button on my desk. "Tell them I'm in a meeting," I said to my assistant, Grace. "Then escort them out." There was a pause. Grace's voice came back, low and professional. "You sure, Marcus?" They're being persistent. I stared at the people I once called family, then turned away. Positive. I've got nothing left to give. Grace handled it like a pro. I heard her calm voice echo faintly through the hall as she told them I wasn't available. Uncle Gary tried to argue. My mom insisted she'd wait. Kyle apparently mumbled something about calling the news. But none of them made it past security. I sat down at my desk, powered off my monitor, and leaned back in my chair. For the first time in years, the weight was gone. The constant pressure. The unspoken expectation that I'd always be the fixer, the provider, the backup plan. It had all evaporated. And I didn't regret a thing. That night, I went home to silence. Peaceful, beautiful silence. No phone buzzing with desperate pleas. No emails from landlords or collection agencies. No guilt-tripping group chats or fake apologies. Just me, a hot shower, and a glass of wine I actually got to enjoy without interruption. Then, something unexpected happened. Grandma called again. I hesitated for a moment before picking up. "Hey baby," she said softly. "I heard they went to your job." I sighed. "Yeah." Caused a bit of a scene. "I'm sorry, Marcus," she said. "They're falling apart without you. But that's not your fault. That's their fault. They took you for granted for too long." I didn't say anything. "Listen," she continued. "I know you feel done. And maybe you should be. But if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm still here. I always will be." My throat tightened a little. Grandma wasn't part of the problem. She never had been. She'd never asked for a dime. Never made a joke at my expense. She just showed up with warmth and old-school wisdom. "Thanks, Grandma," I said. "You're the only one who never treated me like a credit card with a pulse." She chuckled. "That's because I raised you better than that." We hung up not long after, and I knew then that if there was anyone in that family worth holding on to, it was her, and only her. Over the next few weeks, the family stopped trying to contact me directly, probably because they finally realized I wasn't bluffing. My uncle's bogus legal threats evaporated. Kyle tried to get a loan, but with no car and no credit history outside of my shadow, he was stuck. Aunt Teresa moved in with a friend temporarily after getting evicted. James took to social media less and less, probably because no one cared anymore. And Mom, she sent one last text. It said, "You've made your point. I hope you're happy." I didn't reply, because here's the thing about making a point. It's not about making yourself happy. It's about finally saying, enough, and meaning it. I wasn't happy to watch them crumble. I wasn't giddy watching their lights get shut off or seeing their petty TikToks vanish into the void. But I also didn't feel guilty, because I didn't do this to them. They did it to themselves. They built their comfort on my exhaustion, took my success and twisted it into obligation, turned my love into leverage. And when I finally decided to protect myself, they called it betrayal. But what they called betrayal, I called healing. I poured my time into things that made me feel alive again. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in ages because I was always too busy helping family. I picked up photography again. I took a solo trip to Seattle. For the first time in years, my money was my money. My calendar was my calendar. My peace was uninterrupted. And then, months later, something unexpected happened. I was in a cafe downtown, working on my laptop, when a woman tapped me on the shoulder. She looked vaguely familiar, brown eyes, long curls, a polite smile with a hint of nerves. "Marcus?" she asked. I blinked. "Yeah. I'm Amanda," she said. "Kyle's ex." "Ex?" I sat up straighter. She laughed, embarrassed. "Don't worry, I'm not here to argue. I just wanted to thank you." That threw me. "Thank me? For what?" She shrugged, looking sheepish. "For walking away. For drawing the line. I used to think you were just being cold, but after we broke up, I realized he leaned on you because he didn't know how to lean on himself. And you finally forced him to grow up." I didn't know what to say. She gave me a tiny smile and added, "I'm not saying everything worked out, but it helped me see what enabling looks like, and how easily love turns into a leash." We exchanged a few more words, then she left. But that conversation stayed with me for days. It was the first time someone from that side had acknowledged the truth. And over the following months, life moved on. Quieter, calmer, better. I heard from Grandma regularly. We'd chat on Sunday evenings, swap book recommendations, and sometimes just sit on the phone in comfortable silence. She never pushed, never mentioned the others unless I brought them up. But one day I asked, "How are they?" I said, "Really?" She exhaled, struggling. "They're figuring it out the hard way. Kyle finally got a job at a warehouse. Teresa's staying with one of her sisters. Your mama's bitter." I nodded. "Sounds about right." "But," she added, "they don't talk about you anymore. Not in the way they used to. There's this pause when your name comes up, like they know they burned the bridge." That was enough for me. Eventually, I changed my number, moved apartments, started investing in my side business full-time. It's funny, when you stop carrying everyone else's load, you finally have the strength to build something for yourself. And I did. My story doesn't end with a dramatic reunion. No apologies over Sunday dinner. No heartfelt speeches about forgiveness. Just clarity, boundaries, and peace. Sometimes, The best revenge is walking away and never turning back.